On November 10, 1995, a tragic incident deeply affected Nigeria and sent shockwaves globally. Author and activist Ken Saro-Wiwa, along with 8 men from the Ogoni community in the Niger Delta, were executed without legal justification. Ken Saro-Wiwa and the other activists were part of the movement for the survival of the Ogoni people, MOSOP, which brought international attention to the plight of the Ogoni. They were believed to be victims of an alleged conspiracy involving Shell Oil and the Nigerian military dictatorship under General Sani Abacha. The motive behind this alleged conspiracy was to silence both MOSOP and Ken Saro-Wiwa. At the time of his execution, Saro-Wiwa had become one of the most prominent critics of oil exploitation in Nigeria and its severe environmental impact on the Ogoni people. In this episode of African Biographics, we explore the life and enduring legacy of Ken Saro-Wiwa, focusing on his activism against the Nigerian state and his unwavering stance despite facing an illegal and immoral execution. The first oil discovery in Nigeria occurred in November 1908 during initial petroleum exploration in what is now Lagos State. The company responsible for this discovery, Nigeria Bitumen, faced technical challenges that hindered commercial oil production due to water seepage into the oil field. This marked not only Nigeria's first oil discovery but also its first recorded oil spill. In the 1950s, significant petroleum deposits were discovered in the Niger Delta, leading to oil production in 1958. This marked the beginning of a growing industry, attracting numerous foreign oil companies. As Nigeria gained independence, oil played a crucial role in its economic development. However, this heavy reliance on oil turned Nigeria into a rentier state, where the oil sector's interests took precedence over building a functioning and sustainable state. The Niger Delta, including Ogoniland, became the primary source of government revenue, indirectly subsidizing the Nigerian government and corrupt officials. This growing dependence on oil posed significant challenges, as government revenues were almost entirely derived from the petroleum sector. Additionally, environmental degradation, corruption, and social inequality became pressing issues, casting a shadow over Nigeria's newfound wealth. Multinational corporations operating in Nigeria's oil-rich regions caused disruption and chaos. Poorly maintained pipelines and relentless gas flaring led to oil spills, polluting land, water, and air. Ken Saro-Wiwa, a native of Ogoniland, couldn't bear to witness his people's suffering. He dedicated himself to raising global awareness of the environmental and social injustices faced by the Ogoni people due to oil exploitation. Ken Saro-Wiwa was born as Kenel Beeson Saro-Wiwa on October 10, 1941, in Bori, near Port Harcourt, the capital of Rivers State, Nigeria. He received his primary education at a native authority school in Bori and excelled academically, earning government scholarships to attend Government College Umuaria and the University of Ibadan. Following his graduation in 1965, he briefly taught at the University of Lagos, before pursuing a career in the bureaucracy and serving as a federal administrator for the Bonny Island Oil Terminal. During Nigeria's civil war from 1967 to 1970, Saro-Wiwa supported the government's efforts to prevent the secession of Biafra. His support earned him an appointment as the Commissioner for Education in Rivers State. However, he left government service in 1973 because he had become a vocal advocate for greater autonomy for the Ogoni people. The Ogoni people have lived in the Niger Delta for over 500 years, and their land is located to the east of Port Harcourt, Rivers State. Traditionally, their livelihoods depended on the fertile Niger Delta, with aquatic agriculture, animal husbandry, and fishing being their main economic activities. However, their political influence and control over their land and resources were historically limited, as they were an ethnic minority. This lack of political power and constitutional protections applied to many other ethnic minority groups in the Niger Delta. Ken Saro-Wiwa quickly emerged as a leading voice against resource exploitation in the Niger Delta, and the marginalization of the Ogoni people. He highlighted the devastating impact of oil exploration and production on the Niger Delta's environment, and the communities that relied on it for their livelihoods. He also exposed how very little revenue generated from the oil fields was reinvested in the Ogoni region, leading to economic hardship and dispossession of farmland. By 1970, living conditions in Ogoniland had deteriorated significantly, prompting a group of Ogoni leaders to draft a petition detailing the hardships caused by Shell's activities. They appealed to the military governor of Rivers State, highlighting the damages directly attributed to Shell's operations. Just 3 months after sending their petition to the governor, one of the most devastating oil spills in Nigerian history occurred at the Boru oil field in the heart of Ogoniland. This oil spill, which lasted for 3 weeks, wreaked havoc on the surrounding area. Between 1976 and 1996, approximately 7,000 documented incidents of oil spills occurred in the Niger Delta region, resulting in the release of over 2 million barrels of oil. These spills were the consequence of both negligence within the oil industry and the activities of third parties who damaged pipelines, while attempting to steal oil. As mentioned previously, Ken Saro-Wiwa left his government position in 1973. During the following decade, he achieved considerable success in various commercial ventures, including real estate and retail. In the 1980s, he shifted his focus from business to television production, writing, and journalism. He created a satirical television series called By CN Company, which attracted an audience of 30 million Nigerians weekly, and was reportedly the most popular television show in Africa at the time. This show humorously critiqued the country's get-rich-quick mentality. Additionally, Ken Saro-Wiwa authored books such as Soza Boy and Forest of Flowers, and contributed regular columns to the Lagos Times, which expanded his readership beyond Nigeria. In the late 1980s, Saro-Wiwa briefly served in a presidential administration, but grew disillusioned with the entrenched corruption within Nigeria's successive military regimes. This corruption, in his view, could not be challenged from within the existing political structure. During the early 1990s, inspired by the global environmental movement, Saro-Wiwa founded the Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni People, MOSOP, and utilized his influence as a producer of Basie and Company to raise funds and awareness for the Ogoni cause. In a 1990 newspaper article titled The Coming War in the Delta, he demanded a fair distribution of oil revenues in favor of local communities. These efforts led to the drafting of the Ogoni Bill of Rights, a document that called for environmental cleanup, justice for the Ogoni people, political autonomy for Ogoni land, local control of economic resources, and protection from further environmental degradation. This document symbolically marked the start of the non-violent struggle against the Nigerian government and oil companies. Despite the Nigerian government's initial dismissal of their demands, the Ogoni continued to garner international support for their cause, especially from environmental and human rights groups. MOSOP demanded compensation for damages, royalties, and negotiations regarding future oil exploration. However, as tensions mounted, divisions arose within MOSOP. Some leaders favored negotiations with the government, while others, led by Ken Saro-Wiwa, insisted on pursuing the campaign more aggressively. In 1993, MOSOP organized a massive protest attended by nearly 300,000 Ogoni people. They decried the environmental devastation caused by oil companies, and asserted their right to self-determination and control over their oil-rich lands. The Nigerian government responded by sending troops to protect oil installations, imposing a ban on public gatherings, and threatening to consider such protests acts of treason punishable by death. Despite government threats, on January 4, 1993, MOSOP organized a peaceful protest, but violence erupted, leading to fatalities. Following this, Shell, one of the major oil companies in the area, withdrew from Ogoni land, lowered its oil production, and reduced profits for oil companies operating in the region. However, the government intensified its crackdown on the Ogoni. In July and August of 1993, hundreds of Ogoni people were killed in violent attacks, with the government blaming ethnic conflicts, which eyewitnesses disputed. Ken Saro-Wiwa's activism against the Nigerian government and oil companies continued to gain international support. Meanwhile, divisions within MOSOP deepened, with conservative leaders advocating for reconciliation with the government, and a radical faction led by Saro-Wiwa pushing for a more confrontational approach. Saro-Wiwa and several other Ogoni leaders were arrested for their alleged involvement in the killing of conservative leaders in May 1994, though no proper investigation was conducted. They were held for 9 months without access to lawyers before being charged with incitement to murder. The trial was highly flawed, with no credible evidence linking Saro-Wiwa to the murders. Despite this, he and 8 co-defendants were found guilty on October 31, 1995. Within 8 days, their death sentences were confirmed. On November 10, 1995, Ken Saro-Wiwa and the other Ogoni leaders were executed. These executions marked the beginning of a dark period of repression in Nigeria. General Sani Abacha, who was in power at the time, initiated a crackdown on all forms of opposition, and his regime was marked by corruption and brutality. However, Abacha's rule came to an end in 1998, when he died under mysterious circumstances. Ken Saro-Wiwa's life and activism left an indelible mark on Nigeria's history. He courageously confronted powerful forces, fought for his people, and inspired a global movement. His execution was a tragic chapter in the struggle for justice and environmental protection in the Niger Delta.